Yeah. So I guess this new Jubilee video is an absolute banger. Or so I've been told, because people have been saying, Papa Guy, you have to react to it. So I don't know, but it says, do all feminists think the same? Now I'm a little, listen, me personally, I don't know why there's a guy here. Okay. This is just this is my own anecdotal thing. But, you know, I think it's great that men support feminism. I think that there is still a necessity for, you know, when it comes to feminism, there is still advocacy. I think most of it is social advocacy, right? Like, I think for the most part, there's obviously still active sexism that exists, of course. But I think more of it is more social for younger people to understand that when as women grow up, they should be able to have the choice to do what they want. And you shouldn't push women away from fields like STEM, which is something that happens as women are growing up sometimes, depending on the circle you're in, which is something that's going away every single day. So I think that there's still good things to advocate for in feminism. I think it's not a bad thing. But I'm very weary of male feminists. Not men who support feminism, male feminists. Because in my experience, most of them, at least from what I've seen online, as a content creator myself, are people who virtue signal and then they kind of weaponize their position as like a male feminist to take advantage of other people. We saw that with Joe Robe. It just feels dishonest. They're not talking about it in like the way that it just feels like they're just trying to grab attention in the way I grab boobies, you know? You know what I'm saying? Except I do it consensually. They tend to not do it consensually. Anyway, let's watch this fucking video.
Hey.
Oh, I am not interested in that at all. In all honesty, if you guys had shown me this game, but it was a man showing it to me, I might have watched it. But since it's a girl, I don't really buy things from women. Okay, except for OnlyFans. So, sorry. Oh, wait a minute. That seems sexist.
Is the ability to create life,
okay.
And that's basically what makes you a woman.
Femininity and womanhood is so much more than just, you know, getting dressed up and putting on makeup and just the way I feel. It's who I am on a biological level.
All right, we got some turf talk. Woo! That'd be a really interesting podcast. Turf talk. Probably be a very transphobic podcast as well. Let's do it, baby. I like this. That was a really nice intro, guys. That was good. I think that's new.
Men can be feminist.
I would say no. I just don't know what it is. I guess they can be, but we already explained why I'm like a little sussed out by feminist men. Feminists. That'll work. I guess when you talk about it, feminists is really about femininity, not so much about women. Which I agree with that, because like I don't think that we have enough femininity in our society. I think that masculinity is, you know, people who are more masculinely oriented or usually more like managerial oriented or like infrastructure oriented, whereas femininity is more about like caretaking. And I'm not saying women need to do that thing. I'm saying we underrepresent femininity. Empathy. I like put empathy hand in hand with femininity. Like caretaking jobs, social work jobs, these are things that are very underfunded and undervalued. That should be fun. You should get paid more. Direct support professionals. That's a fucking feminine job to me. Not like feminine in a bad way, that it makes you less of a man. But you're taking care of people who can't take care of themselves. You know what I'm saying? So we need to represent femininity more in a better way. That's the way I look at it, dude.
3, 2, 1, go.
I mean, I'm wearing a hoodie that says men can be feminists too. I feel like I have to be over here.
Hey, bro, I'm wearing this hoodie that says men can be feminists. Where's my pussy? Let me get some of that pussy, bitch. That's what it should say. Hey, that's what it should say. It's a shame. Men can be feminists too. Where's my pussy?
I think most men that are feminists are like usually either lazy, virtue signaling, just want to see tits, or access to easy sex.
Hey, I love this woman. She's smart as fuck, bro. Dude, honestly, motherfucker. Because anybody who supports feminism as a man usually won't call himself a feminist. Maybe that's toxic masculinity. I don't know. You don't want to be called a feminist. But bro, Listen, dude, fucking facts. Bro, remember Calvin Brandy? He would talk to, he's like, hey, women are cool. Women have problems, you know. I don't know what I skipped to. They'd be like, oh, you know, women issues, feminist, women issues. And then he fucking sexually assaulted a girl. And then on his way out, plugged a bunch of shoes. Said, I'm never returning again. Buy my friend's shoes. That's what I think about.
You know, push their movement.
I don't know what happened, what I pressed, and where I skipped to. But I'm a little upset about it. All right, right here.
Sex.
I think it depends on your definition of feminism. Like modern day feminism, I would say yes. Like traditional feminism, like advocating for, you know, traditional femininity.
What the fuck does that mean? That's not really feminism to me.
And non-discrimination in the workplace. Like,
I guess maybe it is. I guess I said that.
Or, you know, traditional femininity. And
I don't know. What is traditional femininity? What does advocating for traditional femininity mean? I don't.
And non-discrimination.
That reads to me as like traditional relationships where like a woman is in a more submissive role.
Discrimination in the workplace. Like, I think those things men can agree with.
I see what you're saying when you're like, there's this performative feminism that a lot of guys do.
Yeah.
So if a male feminist is like, oh, I only support like women and it's just only about that, but he's not even talking about how like feminism needs to support men.
Yeah, like kill all men. So come kill this dick. That's what that's what the virtue signaling feminism sounds like.
Or like trans people or whatever, then
I think that person might be a trans male. I think. I don't want to misgender them.
there is a performativeness to it.
Okay.
White feminist voices are too loud.
Woo! We're getting into intersectionality, baby. Yeah. So probably. Here's the thing, man. Dude, this shit gets a little bit complicated. I'm a young man. I'm an old man. But I've been doing my best to educate myself on intersectionality. Intersectionality is really just the idea that different identities clash within different people. So you have Papa Gut. He's Pop. We're just gonna put PG because I can barely draw as it is. So Papa Gut's a man. This is the manosphere. Papa Gut's also fat, right? He also has a huge penis. Don't want to lie to you guys. Anyway. He's also white. So all these identities clash. Now, not so much for me because I'm a white guy. But a lot of times, and it's like, okay, so you have feminist spaces. I would say that generally speaking, people who are more open to advocating for marginalized or particular identity groups or marginalized groups are usually more empathetic to the struggles of other identity groups. However, that's not really always the case, especially when it comes down to those particular groups in general. Right, so feminist spaces tend to be very like white advocating, and like advocating for white issues, right? And there's some like exclusionary for black people or really other people of color. So there's still racism within that community. But then also like in the black community, for instance, or really like any other community, but in the black community, they advocate for black rights. But then sometimes there's sexism in there as well, right? So there's sexism in this community too. This is where intersectionality comes into play because there's not a very strong representation of black women in feminism. One of those issues is because some of the sexism that they feel is from the black community, but then also it's because white people are generally the domineering narrative in general. Like there's more white people bitch and moan and they complain. So intersectionality is like a very complicated thing. Yeah, white voices are yeah, definitely. I wouldn't doubt that at all. You know, it's also one of those things where, you know, if we look at like what white privilege is, so people talk about white privilege, and I don't like the name of it because it sounds very diminishing because it feels like it says, oh, because you're white, you're doing well. But fundamentally, I don't think white privilege has as much to do with being white, although it does, as it has to do with not ever having to acknowledge your whiteness. Does that make sense? Right? So as a white person, I don't really acknowledge race because I've never had to acknowledge race. I've never felt the necessity to acknowledge my race growing up because I was never treated differently. To me, that's white privilege, right? I think black people can have that privilege as well. I think any person of color can have that privilege because, like, some people, not all, have the ability to grow up in areas where they don't have to acknowledge their race. And I think that's what white privilege is more than anything else. Obviously, white people feel it more. The reason I bring this up is because in a feminist space, unfortunately, being white is considered default mode. Because, like, you know, you're usually white women are really only struggling with being women, whereas black women are struggling with being women and black. And so, like, I know that you're laughing, but like feminist spaces tend to be very white centric because there's a lot of white people, and because white is default mode in America. So you don't have to deal with other particular struggles. And so when you have, like, let's say there's 13% of the population I think is black, right? So like, let's say 60% is white, although historically it's been much higher, but let's say 60% is white and then 13% is black, right? These 60% of white people aren't really going to understand the specific issue with being a black woman is. So they're like, I don't really give a fuck about your specific struggle, right? So there's a lot here when it comes to this intersectionality stuff. I'm still educating myself. But yeah, it's definitely very white centric.
3,
Or very
2,
loud.
1, go.
Let's see. I'm surprised. Okay, interesting.
Would agree, like, that white feminist voices are too loud, but then I think that they become really good at using black women or black faces when they want to, you know, push their movement further.
I agree.
That kind of makes sense. She's saying that people like will tokenize black people and black issues for attention in feminist spaces to amplify their voice.
That it's probably not balanced, and I think it probably needs to be more equal. I guess the reason why I'm at somewhat disagree is just because I'm hesitant to say that anyone speaking up for their views is too loud.
I think that's fine, and I can definitely see what you're saying. I just hate, like, when some of these movements use black women when it's convenient for them.
There's not discussion about.
Yeah, that's just like a general problem. Like, you notice nobody's talking about BLM right now. Like, progressives don't give a shit anymore. At least the progressive narrative doesn't really care anymore, or the Democrat narrative. Like, you'll notice every 2 years when there's an election cycle going on, black people seem to matter for 8 months, you know? And then once an election is over, we don't really give a shit about black people. You're going to see social media shift as we get closer to an election season, and black issues are going to be put in the forefront. It's not because black issues matter more now. They matter just as much when we're not talking about them. But it's because it's an easy way to grab the black vote is by talking about black issues. You know, I talked about before, like Vietnam. The only reason that black people got rights, like civil rights in the 60s, is because it's not because black people. It's not really because we cared about black people. It's because we were in the Vietnam War. And it was very hypocritical of us to be over there being like, we're just spreading freedoms when we didn't even have freedom back at home or equality back at home. So, you know, there's usually you don't get anything for free. It's kind of the way that it works.
The Latinas, immigrant, how they get treated on the feminist movement. You know, it's always about either the pro-choice side or something else that it's more interesting to white.
When you think of feminism, you usually think of a white lady. And I think that's still perpetuated, even though there'd be like a lot of black women behind the scenes doing a lot of the heavy lifting and often are in a lot of civil rights movements. White women have certain rights they need through feminism as other people, but they're just always taken more seriously by everyone.
Yeah, probably.
I'll read off a list of public figures and you'll go to your left if you believe the person to be a feminist, or the right if you don't think they're a feminist.
I got confused because they're facing the other way.
Kim Kardashian.
I wouldn't say that
she
isn't
I don't
a
even know.
feminist. I don't think that's her number one thing.
She went from doing her show and the whole like sex scandal thing to like, you know, now she's working in law and civil rights, and she's done the whole family thing. Ultimately, I think that Kim Kardashian is a woman that has like done what she's wanted to do.
Amy
I guess so. I don't really know. I know Kim Kardashian is big into like social justice stuff. So
Coney Barrett.
who the fuck is like a judge, right? I just don't give a fuck.
Amy Coney Barrett, in my opinion, is like the epitome of a feminist. She's literally like a Supreme Court justice in like the highest court of the land. And she totally disproves the narrative that women have to choose between having a career and a family.
You know, I think instead of Amy Coney Barrett, they should have said Judge Judy. You know what I'm saying, dude? Judge Judy, much more recognizable. Much more recognizable.
I don't really agree with her a lot on her political stances, but I think more so as just being a role model for women to be on a level of the Supreme Court where it's primarily dominated by men.
J.K. Rowling.
Definitely feminist, guys. A little bit of a turf. Honestly. You'd say she was a feminist, but she's more exclusion. Oh my God. She doesn't really include trans people so much because she's a bit of a TERF. It doesn't really make her a non-feminist. It just shows you like some of the toxic aspects of feminism and like the way that sometimes they can be, they can not be particularly inclusive. It's a very interesting thing and like a conversation to have, because you'll notice that like the older a feminist is, the higher chance that that individual is, it doesn't like excludes trans people. And the reason for that is, and I'm not supporting that, I just want to explain it. The reason it is because it's like a hard thing to communicate. But basically, in the general life cycle of like a trans person, some women just don't feel that trans women understand their struggle to the same degree. And there's probably a level of truth to that. So like a general woman's life cycle, you know, obviously goes like this. You know, you're born, you die, right? You hit 18 years old and you could fucking, you know, you can have whatever, do whatever you want. The thing is for like a trans person, a trans woman, most of the time what ends up happening is like you don't start transitioning until you hit 18. So, and like I know this is like a little bit of a touchy topic. So like you're, we'll say you're a female or you're a woman here in your development cycle, and then you're a woman afterwards. For trans women, you usually identify as a male through your developmental cycle, and then you'll transition afterwards. And so you have a different set of struggles and issues as you're growing up. Right? One of, like, I'd say one of the pretty big, at least half of the struggles of women is being socialized away from doing things that men want to do. Right? So a lot of times women will be like, you don't want to do sports, or, that's like a boy thing, or you should be doing this because you're a girl, et cetera, et cetera. Trans women don't really face that because they grow up and they're socialized as men. And I'm not saying trans women don't deal with their own shit. I mean, you're obviously dealing with like, you know, an identity issue at some point. You know, maybe it was when you're born, maybe it's afterwards. I don't really know. It doesn't really matter. But you're dealing with a whole other struggle here, because you're being raised as a man, but you're also, you know, not identifying as one, or it doesn't feel comfortable for you. So there's a whole set of issues. I'm not saying that there aren't issues associated here, but this is the reason why like all more, I guess, kind of classical, older feminists, they don't really like trans women, and they don't think that they're very representative, whatever. Dude, I can't speak anymore. I'm getting dumber by the day. So that's why that is. I think a really good example of this is that spa incident where you had a trans woman that wanted to go into a spa that wasn't passing really at all. And they showed their genitals to people in there, and it made a lot of women uncomfortable. And that's because there's a big issue with women feeling unsafe, especially in those in like a private setting, because, you know, whether you want to hear it or not, part of being a feminist is understanding, or part of advocating for feminism is understanding that men do shitty things to women, right? Women do shitty things to men as well, but women often don't feel you know, safe enough to walk the streets at night. As a man, I won't even let my wife walk outside at night when we go on walks by herself. I go with her because I'm afraid of it, right? So we acknowledge these things exist. And so you're clashing like a trans person who wants their identity to be seen as valid, that's not passing, with you know, other cisgender women you know, struggling with feeling invalid or violated by the existence of somebody they perceive as a man being in that's in there, right? Or being in the locker room. And that's how we're like these two identities clash. It's another example of intersectionality. So
3 years ago, I would have said yes, and there's still a lot of reasons I would. She was a single mom, she wrote all the books, she became a billionaire. The reason I would say kind of no now is her just kind of weird.
I want to hear what he has to say in general. I haven't really heard him talk.
Weird anti-trans zealotry she's gotten involved in that kind of undercuts a lot of her other feminist stuff.
I mean, I disagree that just for the fact that she expresses her own opinions, that now people like literally crucified her and really want to like put her under and undermine everything she has done, you know?
It's just she has such a big platform that when you're talking like this very extreme stuff about a marginalized group, that's really the issue.
Why?
Well, see, that's the interesting thing, though. I don't think it makes J.K. Rowling any less of a feminist to be invalidating of trans people. I think it's wrong. But you wouldn't say that like somebody that supports BLM would be less of a advocate for black people if they don't like women, if they're sexist. It seems kind of hypocritical since you're advocating for one, you know, marginalized group and not the other. So it seems like there's a little hypocrisy there. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but it doesn't invalidate you being an activist in one space because you're not an activist or you're against another space. I just think it's wrong.
Should women like with a platform be forced to align with the mainstream narrative of what it means to be a woman and a feminist? Like, why can't her own personal journey be enough?
It really comes down to not that it's an opinion, it's that she's spreading a lot of dangerous misinformation.
But based on what, though? Because you don't agree with it?
No, it's scientific facts. Like, she's just talking about stuff that's incorrect. And her ideas about trans men have affected legislation that harms trans men getting the resources they need.
You know, I wonder what the specifics are because I remember seeing something where J.K. Rowling, like, she made a book that like seemed, I think the book was referencing a cross-dresser as a main character or something, as like a bad guy, but it seemed like to have some anti-trans undertones. I would need, like, I've been trying to educate myself on it, but I haven't seen, like, I think, did she also say something about how only women have periods? Is that what she said? Because I haven't seen a lot. That does seem like she's not. I don't think that she dislikes trans people. I just don't think that she thinks that they're necessarily valid. I guess I don't know. I just haven't seen a lot on it. I guess I need a better like explanation or showing of like what she did wrong, because it's hard to understand. People are telling you she's transphobic. I haven't seen like massive. Like right there, like the articles that they're showing are like, hey, such and such says this about her. I'm not saying that she's not transphobic. I just wish that there was a more in-depth explanation. It's like, oh, well, you know, she said this and then this, and this. It's just hard to like understand what the fuck's happening, because I don't want people to just be like, oh yeah, she hates trans people because other people said so. I just wish I could see the root facts.
Affected legislation that harms trans men getting the resources they need. Trans women are women.
Let's see, a complete breakdown of the transgender controversy. What did she say? On 2020, Rowling tweeted an op-ed piece that discussed people who menstruate, apparently taking issue with the fact that the story did not use the word women. People who menstruate. I'm sure there used to be a word for those people. Someone help me out. Oh, okay. I guess that's a little transphobic. Okay. A lot of backlash. Well, did not run that. Okay. Well, if sex isn't real, then there's no same-sex attraction. If sex isn't real, okay, yeah. So she's just ignorant on trans shit. If sex isn't real, there is no same-sex attraction. If sex isn't real, then the lived reality of women globally is erased. I know and love trans people, but erasing the concept of sex removes the ability of many to speak meaningfully, discuss their lives. Okay. The idea that women like me, who have been empathetic to trans people for decades, feeling kinship because they are vulnerable in the same way as women, i.e. to male violence, hate trans people because their sex is real. Yeah, it doesn't sound like she actively hates trans people. It just sounds like she doesn't quite like. I would say that she doesn't understand. To get the fuck out of here. Sorry. She doesn't understand. Yeah, she probably feels like the kind of person that feels like trans people, to an extent, is a little bit of erasing like feminist issues, I guess. I'd say she's ignorant. I don't think she hates trans people, though. It's definitely sussy. Yeah.
3,
Trans women are women. Yeah, sure.
3, 2, 1, go.
Wow, strongly disagree. I'm very surprised that they strongly disagree with that.
I think we're all
Very interesting.
just positioned here based on our political beliefs, and as for how we see the LGBTQ.
I mean,
Listen, ask this guy real quick. Would you fuck a trans woman? I want him to ask that question because I feel like this guy's just in it for the poo nanny. You know what I'm saying? It's a little wolf in sheep's clothing, dude.
I think it's also split between, all the men are on that side and all the women are on this side. I know, being a woman.
I wonder. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry because I know that there are trans people in this chat. It was almost like a fucking humorous jump cut.
That side and all the women are on this side.
Because they're like, oh, all the men are on the right side and all the women are on the left side, and then they cut to the trans man. I believe this is a trans person. Or maybe they're like a very masked lesbian. I don't really know. I could be wrong. It's hard to tell. It's just like a jump cut, and I was like, bro, come on. Because this person, I think they're a trans male. I could be 100% wrong, and if I am, fucking stab me in the balls with a knife. But remember before we were talking about how like trans women like they'll usually grow up and are socialized as men, and then when they transition they start to like they'll deal with more like women issues and whatnot. This person would have like the opposite. They would be socialized as a woman, and then they would deal with like the earlier issues, and they'd have their own. You know what I mean? Like it's all fucked up. He's gay. I don't know. This looks like I don't see an Adam's apple. Maybe I'm wrong, bro. I'm so sorry if I'm wrong and ignorant. I'm just trying to make an assumption. What's the person's name? It's definitely not Grace. Or her. Or him. Or her. Okay. Fuck is this guy? Oh, there's nothing else there. I wish I knew, because I feel like I don't want to be a fucking asshole.
I know, being a woman, that there are certain things that we have to deal with as women that people who are not, biologically women don't have to.
She's so happy about it, though.
To deal with. I mean, we have to deal with having our periods and go through that really awkward stage when we're 13, and people who...
What's happening right now? My computer shitting itself?
Trans women don't have to go through that.
Trans women live their entire lives as women. They don't turn it off. It's not something that they're turning off, and then to come up to them and say, oh yeah, I see you're doing this, but you're not a woman. It's kind of insulting.
How do you live your life as a woman? Because every single time somebody says that, they name the most stereotypical things. It's like putting on a dress, putting on makeup. It's biological. I was born a woman. I can't be a man.
So
I can't be a man no matter how much I try. I can't be you.
And it's just, chromosomes and that's it.
Are the differences?
I mean, they're making a good point about what they're saying. This is where like intersectionality comes into play. Whether you want to like hear it or not, like there are biological and social aspects to everything. So a more passing trans woman would obviously deal with like probably more issues associated with women than a non-passable one. But then the less passable you are, the more issues you're going to deal with as a trans person. Because if you're presenting in a way where people can tell you're trans, they're going to judge you based on that. A lot of the things that you deal with are like judgment based. It doesn't mean that trans women aren't women. It would just mean that they're different from women. So, yeah, I mean, it really depends on the person. But
It's just chromosome.
True, and then if you're taking fucking estrogen, then you the emotional parts of the period. Yeah, true. I think men actually have a period as well. It's just different. I get moody once a month too.
Chromosomes just having children.
I bleed out of my dick once a month too. I think that's normal, right? Is that normal, guys?
That's like so hurtful and discriminatory against women, because femininity and womanhood.
Why is it discriminating against women? I understand like the lack of understanding of trans people, because like how do you understand unless you're trans? But to say that it's discriminating against women, that feels like a little sussy. You know what I mean? Why am I saying sussy so much today? It sounds a little invalidating.
Is so much more than just getting dressed up and putting on makeup and just the way I feel. It's who I am on a biological level.
Right. So for you, it is the ability to create life, and that's basically what makes you a woman.
I feel like that's really boiling it down too much. What she's saying is it's like the going through like particular feelings, being socialized as a woman growing up, and then like biological aspects to women, et cetera, et cetera. That's what she's saying. I understand what she's saying. I disagree with her, but like I think it's important to listen to women about feminism. You know what I mean? Because there's no way that we're going to be able to have trans women more accepted in the feminist space unless you listen to feminists who don't like trans people. Or don't feel that trans people can identify as women and have like a conversation about it.
What makes you a man? Or would you consider yourself a man? I probably should.
Yeah, I was born a man. I behave as a man. I carry myself
through society. So what would I have to do to be a man like you?
So,
I want to be a man now.
So we can both agree that our society has things that men generally do, things that women generally do, right? If you start to fall on one side of the spectrum versus the other side of the spectrum, then you're going to be treated as that gender.
Maybe, but then then that kind of like, it gets very complicated, because doesn't that invalidate and mask lesbians then? You know what I'm saying? It's all over the place.
I think it's a little obscure that we're looking at it as such a basic.
Dude, shut up, Jared. I don't know his name, but that's his name now.
Requirement, more so that, I mean, humans are much more evolved than any other animal, so why are we still using just the requirement of, well, if that person has a penis, he's a male, or that person has a vagina, they're a female.
I think you're a masculine woman or a feminine man. That doesn't make you.
Bro, stop jump cutting to this person. I know they're doing it on purpose. And the feeling is supposed to show how upset this person is. But it makes me laugh because it's almost comedic how they go like, oh, we're going to invalidate a trans person? Let me show how upset the trans person gets. It's just like fucked up. It makes me giggle because it's so fucked up. It's just fucked up. It's just so fucked up, bro.
That gender, and to try to like deny just basic biological facts. We all learn this in high school. Like, let's stop acting like it's something new and different now because it's like the hip thing to say.
I think there's like a lot of conflating of being female versus being a woman. Being female is chromosomal, it's what you're born as. Being a woman is a societal construct. They can align, like yours obviously all align. Like you pointed over here, you're like, all the men over here. The first 30 years of my life, I was a woman. I transitioned.
See, that was a pretty epic nay-nay. That was a very good explanation, and she kind of just, or, fuck. Damn it. Sorry. Fuck. I just like lost all my traction. I'm like, that was a really good explanation. And like, and then he was like, yeah, and I grew up as a woman and you called me a man. So like how, like by your logic, I wouldn't be a man, but you should called me a man, which means that they perceive that person as a man, right? But I just nay-nayed myself, bro. I feel like a piece of shit after that. That one wasn't even like a joke. I just feel like shit. Jesus Christ.
It's a disconnect with what you're born as and what you feel you should be.
So gender dysphoria.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
sure.
I can believe that. I 100% could believe that. Yeah.
If it was just like,
I wonder what that means to that woman. Because like gender dysphoria exists, right? And so this person probably has gender dysphoria. Like that's usually you get a diagnosis with that to be able to transition, like not just socially, but also like, you know, I guess chemically. What'd you say? I don't know, hormones and shit. A lot of times though, people will say like, oh, you someone's like, open it, Papa. Open it. I do want to open paint. I do. I don't even know why. I just go to it now when I explain things. I don't even need it open. I'm just going to sit here. Okay. So a lot of times, a lot of times people will say, oh, you have like a mental disorder, which I think it's reclassified as a sexual health condition, but they'll say like, oh, you have this. So you have gender dysphoria. So you're invalid as a woman, right? That's what they'll usually say. And that's why I asked, like, why did she say that? Did she say that to be like, okay, I understand you're a person going through things? Or was it like, okay, you have a mental issue, so you can't be a woman. You just perceive yourself as one. And the thing that I take issue with that as invalidating people based on like having gender dysphoria is like, would you do the same thing to an autistic or a person with autism, whatever the fuck you're supposed to say? Would they be like, hey, I deserve human rights? And they'd be like, well, you're not really a human because you're autistic. And be like, well, yeah. Or they'd be like, I don't know. You get what I'm saying? Be like, well, you don't really deserve it because you're autistic. It's like, oh, it's just a mental disorder. You just have a particular like, issue. So, like, do you really need the same rights as that? You know what I mean? And, like, but when I come from it is I look at it this way. You have people, right? And people, the goal for people is to function in society. That is it. And then every person, based on who they are, has a different struggle that makes it difficult to do that thing. Right, so let's make this longer. So everybody wants to function in society. So for instance, me, like I have ADHD. So that I needed to see somebody. So it wasn't a straight path because of that. And everybody has things that they, struggles they can identify with. So I had ADHD. So that was something that helped that I had to overcome. And then so I got that. I got diagnosed, and then I got treated, which helped me do this. It helped me get there. Somebody that might have gender dysphoria, it's the same thing. And we look at this and say, like, okay, so how can you get somebody with gender dysphoria to function into society well? This is a person that has like their gender identity, doesn't align with their biological sex. And it's like, okay, so what do they need? Well, depends on the person, but like generally speaking, you need to see like a therapist, maybe get some hormone treatment. Usually you'll set like, I want to hit this goal. Like I want to look like this person. Like if I was trans, I'd want to look like Xena, the warrior princess. Because she's hot as fuck, right? And then you start with you, and then the therapist, you're like, okay, what do you want to look like? And oh, Xena, okay, well let's work our way this way. And while we work to transition, we'll also like you'll be talking to a therapist so you can rein in some of your expectations. Because obviously, I can never look like Xena. I would be much more attractive. As a woman. So that's the treatment method, is like, and part of the treatment method is like socially accepting trans women as women. What do we lose as a society by doing that? Nothing. Maybe you're blurring the lines. The worst case scenario is I accidentally have sex with a trans woman. Oh well. I don't give a fuck. Like, it doesn't really matter. And whether you want to hear it or not, like, I understand that can be uncomfortable, and I don't think anybody should have to have sex with a trans woman. I think that trans women should be open about them being trans before you have sex with somebody. But at the end of the day, you being upset about sleeping with a trans person is really, whether you want to hear it or not, internalized homophobia. And I think you have every right to experience that and feel however you want as long as you respect people. But if you have sex with a trans person, and especially if you think that they're passing, and then you're like, oh, I fucked a guy afterwards when they told you, that's you being a little, that's like a little bit of that's your perception of like, oh, they're not really like trans or whatever. And you're allowed to feel that, man. You're allowed to feel that. I don't think you're a bad person for not wanting to sleep with a trans person. I don't understand that identities can be very, like, very serious and conflicting to everybody, even straight people. But, whatever. So we blur the lines. And honestly, whether you like it or not, 20 years from now, 30, 40, 50 years from now, nobody's going to care anymore. Whether somebody's trans, depending on the passability of the person. The only thing I would be upset about if I slept with a trans person I didn't know was that, like, I want to suck some penis, but I don't want to suck a dude's penis. That's gay. So I'd rather suck a woman's penis. So, like, you should have told me. I would have sucked it. Anyway, let's get back into this fucking video.
I just wanted to be a masculine woman, then sure, that's easy to do. But that didn't work. I'm not going to say I'm male. I wasn't born with XY. That'll never change. And no trans person will ever tell you they're biologically born that way, because if anyone knows anything about biology, it's trans people. That's why they have to get hormones and do all this other stuff.
Me too. I'm on vitamin T. I'm just kidding.
And it doesn't take away your womanhood if someone else is a different type of woman. It's a different experience that shouldn't make you feel less of a woman if they're around, or vice versa.
Do you all feel like the feminist movement should be fighting for trans women within that movement?
That's an interesting question. I know they're going to answer it.
I mean, it should be fighting for everyone's genders, whether they're trans women,
That's
trans
fair.
men, cis women, cis men, or non-binary people. That's just part of feminism.
That's an interesting question, and that's a good answer. But, like, the only reason I said it was interesting is because we're going to pull paint out again. Dude, I'm addicted. I'm addicted. We were talking about before about intersectionality. In any group, fundamentally, it doesn't really matter what it is. There needs to be like a level of homogeneity versus heterogeneity in it. So there needs to be, there needs to be a collective goal. And the more that you off base that you go from that goal could potentially hurt the main goal, which is why we have trans activist spaces and feminist spaces. All right. So as an activist for feminism, you're advocating for like women in general and particular issues that most women will experience. Same thing in the trans space. Now, a trans woman is going to have an overlap between these two. However, if the feminist space focuses too much on trans women, it can kind of get lost in the sauce and end up having a negative impact on the feminist perspective, only because they're trying to do too much. I know that sounds bizarre, but like it happens with like anything. And so when you say like, should they advocate? I think so. But like, how much can you practically advocate for, trans women in the feminist space without taking away from the primary goal of feminism? If that makes any sense, right? Because it's just, that's pretty much all I'm trying to say. It's a very interesting thing. Looks like a barbell.
I don't think so. I think it defeats the entire movement.
Every feminist should be pro-choice.
I guess. I think you should just be pro-choice. I don't know if it has to do with feminism. I mean, I guess it's your choice. But what about the woman babies? Fuck baby. Not literally. But you get what I'm saying. 3,
2, 1, go.
Okay. Let's see what we have to say. Interesting. I would have expected more people to be like on the agree side more. Huh.
I consider myself to be a pro-life feminist.
I guess because it's conflicting between being pro-choice is freedom of personal body autonomy. But then also you should be able to have the choice of what you want to do. So I guess you, as a woman, should be able to express themselves differently and be like, oh, I think you should be pro-life. All right.
And I think that the idea that we can tell women that they can't identify as feminists unless they say that they're pro-choice goes totally against everything that feminism stands for.
I agree with that, and I think that's actually something.
I mean, like, let's be honest, guys. Feminism started as busy work for women because they were bored at home, not doing any work when the men were really working. That's what this is the problem. Is that that's the whole problem, is that women weren't working and they're like, we're bored. Let's make something up. Feminism. You know what I mean? Like, PU. Feminism is dumb. Am I right, guys? Doesn't even matter. Feminism stinks. That's right. Preach it. I'm just kidding, though. But
that's beautiful about womanhood and women in general, and something that kind of shows ways that modern feminism has kind of been a little exclusionary, because women come from all different backgrounds and thought processes, and I think we should support the freedom of choice, the freedom of speech, regardless of the lifestyle that woman wants to choose.
What's interesting is that they didn't say, do you think that feminists have to be, pro-choice? They said, do you think they should be? And I do think that they should be, because that advocates for more choices of women. You know what I'm saying?
If you personally feel you're pro-life, that's fine. Feminism as a movement should be pro-choice to allow anyone to choose whatever path they want to have, whether they want to have children or not have children or have abortions or whatever. But if feminism is pro-life, then you've blocked one group of people from choosing whether they want to have abortions or their own family planning.
One of the pushbacks that I would just love to give is, I believe that abortion is wildly discriminatory against women and against people with disabilities.
Why?
Baby girls are aborted at a higher rate.
I guess I'll look into that. Aren't more women born at a higher rate? Like, aren't men slightly outnumbered by women? And then why are they aborted at a higher rate? I just have to see if I can verify this statistic. What's the statistic there? I can't find anything that supports that. Is that a true statistic? Is it more men? I'm pretty sure it's more women are born than men, but either way, why? I can't verify that statistic. Is that true? I would need to look into that, because, like, why would that be? Is it just because there are more women being born in general, like slightly higher? Or are we pushing the idea that, like, we don't want to have, they're just killing daughters because they don't want to have a daughter? Is that what they're saying? Or that people are having abortions just to not have a daughter? I just feel like I can't find anything. Are girls aborted at a higher rate? Selective abortion. Okay, I know that selective abortion is okay. Abortion. That issue. So there's a thing called sex selective abortion. But that you're gonna see a higher correlation of sex selective abortion in more regressive countries that value. Let's see. Hold on. That value men more than women, I would imagine. So sex ratio at birth. I'm looking at this chart. This is from 2012. Yo, get the fuck out of here, bro. Little stupid thing. Okay, so I guess in America, there's a 0.0, like about a 5% chance, like it's 5% more likely to abort if you're a woman. So I'm just trying to understand. In 2020, male to female ratio at birth in the United States was 1.05 males per 100 females. So more males are being born than women. Which would make sense if we're having selective abortion. But I feel like that's such a small percentage of abortions. Wait, hold on, what is this statistic? This is just sex ratio at birth. This isn't a... Oh, this is just sex ratio at birth. This doesn't even talk about abortion. This has nothing fucking to do with abortions. This is just showing that there are more boys born than girls in this country. So in wherever the fuck this is, I don't care, because I don't give a shit. Okay, this would be like there's more boys per girl, because they would have a higher value on girls being born, on boys being born, I guess. But this doesn't show us how many abortions there are that are higher. South Korea, China. Okay, that makes sense. I feel like this is such a drastically low thing. I can't even find a statistic. I can't find a statistic. I'm not looking for people saying I got a selected abortion. I'm looking I'm looking specifically for the abortion ratio of how many women to men or boys to girls. And I can't find it, so okay, we're just gonna have to pretend I don't even know what the fuck that is.
Which is so sexist, and so I truly don't think that you care rate, which is so sexist, and so
I can't really take what she's saying.
Wildly discriminatory against women and against people with disabilities. Baby girls are aborted at a higher rate, which is so sexist, and so I truly don't think that you can be a feminist who is pro-choice, because these are discriminatory practices.
So I am pro-choice. I feel like somebody should have whatever type of choice that they want to make. They should have an equal say as far as, hey, this is my body, I want to be able to have an abortion, or just as equally, I want to say I'm going to have this baby. So, and I do believe it's 100% up.
Okay. Yeah, apparently girls are born at a higher rate. No. Oh wait, boys are born at a higher rate, depending on the country. Okay, dude, this is I have to look into this off the stream because I'm just wasting
Up to the woman. A feminist should probably be more aligned with giving someone their own choice.
Menstrual products should be free.
Listen, menstrual products should be free. Boars, not boys. Listen, ideally, probably. Right? Because we could sit here and be like, okay, then male issues should be free as well. But like men's issues tend to come from like a more, you know, like what, like going to the doctor. And you'd probably say yes. It's like, yeah, men have prostate cancer. Should that be free? Should it be free to treat prostate cancer? And everybody would be like, yeah, probably. But it's one of those things where it's just like such a bizarre thing, you know? You know, here's the thing. We can make menstrual products free. Okay? But here's the thing. You get a cup. You get a fucking cup. You get a free cup. And then you stick it into your vagina and it bleed into the cup. There you go. Free product for you. Bada bing, bada boom. We're all done. Boom. Do you think bald people should get free hats? Come on, bro. Where does it end? Seriously, actually. I was like, maybe that's actually a point. Huh? Should we have toilet paper for free too? I shit a lot more than you. Should I have free toilet paper? I don't know. Maybe it should be, but who gives a fuck? I feel like it's such a small thing. It's really like we're not even there. We're still dealing with like general wealth redistribution. We're really not there yet. You know what I'm saying?
3, 2, 1, go.
Do we really think babies should have guns? Yeah, I agree.
Just being able to provide, for example, on the
Just fucking free bleed, bro. Just bleed all over the floor. You know what I'm saying? Like, who gives a shit?
low-income school, you know, there's a lot of girls that cannot afford them.
You can get one of those little cups and then put it in your vagina, and then you can drink the blood later for a little snack. You can put it inside of your food for your husband to eat, or your wife, you know, or whatever. Because when you think about it, that's a good way to spread your hormones. That's the closest you'll ever get to a woman is eating that. Oh, boom. You know? There you go.
you know, and they're ashamed to ask for it.
I mean, I personally believe that
Well, okay.
anything that you didn't, I guess, ask for, like menstrual cycles, or even, I mean, if we get into healthcare, I think that should all be added on.
I believe that everyone should be compensated for their labor, and I believe that creating and producing menstrual products, it's a service, and that people should get paid.
Well, no, but
Well, yeah, but then you'd use taxes for it. Like, that's what they're trying to say.
I'm saying that they won't get paid because, like you said, you were born a woman. You didn't ask to have.
Like, I used to work for a bus company. We got paid by the county. You know what I'm saying? Like, we got paid. The government paid for it. Now, the system could have been run better, but that's a whole different conversation. How do you think the government would fuck up menstrual pads, though? You know what I mean? Like, they would manage to do it. You know what I'm saying?
Have periods, so now you have to go out and pay taxes on. You know, you have to pay more taxes than I do
Exactly.
because I don't have to buy
You don't have to buy
tampons
tampons,
or
yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
Is this like a pandemic of women like bleeding through their clothes or something? Because I've worked with low-income families. This is never an issue I've ever heard other than on social media. Now, are there instances, or may there be segments in people's lives where they need like things, or they need help, or they need the community to get behind them? Absolutely. But I don't think it's this huge crisis that everybody is making it out to be. I just have not seen it.
Okay.
Every woman should be a feminist. 3, 2,
Sure, I don't care.
1, go.
Once again, I feel like that kind of goes against everything that feminists.
Well, they're saying should they be versus like do they have to be? Like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, do you think all women should be feminists? Maybe. I mean, I just think that there's a lot of women who don't give a shit because they're like, I haven't experienced this particular issue. I don't think that you should be forced to care about an issue that you don't identify with. I think it's a good thing to care about issues you don't identify with, but it doesn't mean that you have to be forced to. Everybody's dealing with their own shit.
Feminism stands for by saying that a woman has to think a certain way.
Every woman should be a feminist instead of every woman has to be a feminist. That's kind of why I went to the strongly agree. Yes, you should be a feminist if you're a woman because you should want equal rights.
Going back, I think people have really misinterpreted the word feminism, you know, but most women should be feminist, but they are. I think to me they are. I don't know any woman that it's not a feminist, but they don't call themselves that because of the extreme feminism. Like, for example,
That's
I
fair.
like to serve my husband. You know, that's something I like. That doesn't make me not a feminist. That's who I am. He likes to do other things, like change my tires. I will never do that. That doesn't mean
True.
I'm not a feminist. You
It's like me and my wife.
know?
And that is officially a wrap, you guys.
That was a good episode, guys. I liked it a lot. Let's clap.
I can't put it.
High five.
All right. You know what time it is, guys. It's pee-pee time. I got to take a pee-pee. Bada bing, bada pee. About to pee. Be right back.